Assalamu alaikum, family. You're tuned into the Sajdah channel, and today we're going to be talking about mathematical thinking from the chapter in my groundbreaking new book, The Art and Science of Business. So be a friend, tell a friend, and we'll be right back after a few short messages and a beautiful prayer. See you in a few.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judges, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who in my judgment is the master historian, taught us that of all our studies, history is the most attractive, and it is best qualified to reward the researcher. History is most attractive. Why should history be most attractive? Because history is the recorded time of the human family in its struggle to overcome obstacles. There is no life that is without struggle. The Holy Quran teaches us that man, meaning man and woman, is made to face difficulties. And after difficulty comes ease. But it is history that guides us through difficulty. For if you know how people who had difficulty yesterday got through, and if your difficulty is somewhat similar, then today we also can get through if we follow the guidance of history. This is why Carter G. Woodson and many of our black giants fought for black people to know our history. Because in not knowing our history, we don't have a guide. And without a guide, we are lost. No wonder the Bible...
Assalamu alaikum, family. Peace be unto you, and welcome to the Sajdah channel. You're tuned in, and I'm excited. You know, something that's very interesting. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and we were talking about being corporate professionals or former corporate professionals, and having gone deep into our field of study, and then looking at like pop culture, right? Like the world of podcasting and all of that stuff, where they, you know, bring people on to these different shows and talk to them about, I thought I'd take that off. Talk to them about different subject matter. And we're thinking to ourselves, why don't they ever get that person that is deep into that field to come on to the podcast to really talk and teach people? Why do they get pop culture type of people to talk about things that we are subject matter experts in? A lot of that is because we have been nursed and trained in our society to look for the glitz, the glam, the numbers, the popularity, and and because we've been reduced to these basic levels of thinking, it makes it difficult for us to absorb information from the proper subject matter experts, if that makes sense. And so one of the things that I try to do in the book, if you don't have the book, go right here to the link, Art and Science of Business, and get it. We just did some updates on the website, put some testimonials out there. I got some more testimonials yesterday. We'll be getting those out and up there over the weekend. But Allah is really blessing the efforts of the Art and Science of Business, of the Art and Science of Business's team. It's really a blessing. My goal is for us to sell 100,000 books. And so we got work to do. We got some events coming up, which I'll tell you all about that later. There's 2 that are scheduled that are coming up. But in the meanwhile, y'all got to get the book. So when we have these discussions at the event, they're very fruitful, right? But so all of that said, in the wake of the Holy Day of Atonement and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's direction to us to settle our differences, because we're going to need each other as America continues to unravel. Our unity with one another is going to be very important. We're going to start to see the vicissitudes of life kind of going like that. So today, this person might be up. Tomorrow, the next person might be down. There's going to be so many interesting and uncanny things that are happening. We've also been taught in the spirit of the Million Man March to clean up our lives. So if there's anything out there that we're doing that we know we shouldn't be doing, we're moving fastly into a space where you're going to be exposed. And that exposure is going to be a very rapid new school type of exposure, because today things happen faster, right? It takes longer for things to get out there, but then it's like overnight, like a blink of an eye before it goes rapid and punishment comes. So back in 1995 at the Million Man March, the minister was instructing us to settle our differences and to clean up our lives, get our act together. When this is what we have to understand in context, because I know a lot of us, excuse me, I know a lot of us really suffer from Stockholm syndrome, in that we want to be a white man so bad. There's a lot of us as Black women, Black men, Hispanic, Black, brown. We want to be a white man so bad that we think that what applies to them will apply to us. And I want to put some context to this before we go into mathematical thinking, because many of the reasons why we have issues and differences with one another, within our families, within our communities, is because we're simpletons. We don't we don't understand how to apply different types of thinking. We only apply that colonized thinking that we think is going to get us the attention of somebody in authority. We're very basic thinking. And so when you're a basic thinker, you can't think in a complex way. And then a basic thinker goes into their head. Oh, they didn't answer the phone because they don't like me, or they did this or that to me. They make up stuff. They make up stories in their head. And then if they think they're spiritual, they be like, oh, spirit told me. No, you're just a binary thinker, and you reduced yourself to just probably one or two ways, or maybe even one way to conclude on something, and you don't know how to think in a complex way. It's not the spirit, it's your problem. But when we start thinking about moving into this phase where America is unraveling fast, and what do I mean by that? Obviously, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad predicted the fall of America back in the 60s. I'm talking about that, but I'm not. We are moving into a smaller global economy. Most of us are still operating based on the machine that was created during the Industrial Revolution. So a lot of us are out of step, out of date. We're antiquated. We have a vintage mind, because we think that the systems that were in place will continue to work. But now you have technology that moves faster. People don't even commit the same crimes that they used to commit in the 60s and 70s. And what's going to begin to happen now, which is what already happens, if they catch somebody who is committing a crime and they doing like an old school crime, here's what used to happen really as early as 20 years ago. The alphabet people would wait until you reach a certain transaction level. So if it's a petty crime, they may not say anything to you. If it's something over a certain threshold, they would wait and get you then. Wait till it get over, $100,000 or something like that. And then once your criminal activity met that threshold, then they would come in on you. Gave them an opportunity to give you a greater sentence and perhaps even catch anybody that's working with you. But what's happening today is, if the computer, everything's technology today, everything is generated, if it catches that you have exhibited either a chronic practice of criminality or even one time that's big enough that they can pin a bunch of stuff that they're doing on you, you will get busted overnight. And it'll be quick and swift. And you'll be trying to figure out, like, wait, what? But what? I got a lawyer. And then you're thinking, because you're thinking about back in the day, you're thinking, oh, well, this ain't nothing. This is only going to get me this, or this is a misdemeanor. But then you look up, and behind the scenes, they've pinned all this shit over here onto you. Why do they do that? Because as America unravels, this is very serious. As America unravels, they're doing stuff to cushion the fall of America and to help save themselves from the destruction that's happening, say, for example, in the economy. Oh, let me give you one more example. No, I don't want to use that one. Anyway, they're as they're trying to cushion it, they got to have an escape route. So if you're doing mortgage fraud, or if you're doing currency fraud, if you're doing gift card fraud, if you're doing something that back in the day, maybe you've been doing it. I would suggest you break yourself of all these habits and use the Holy Day of Atonement as an opportunity, just like we did 30 years ago with the Million Man March, to commit to a better way of doing things. Whatever it is that you're doing, then they can pin the entire ring on you or put you in that ring. And then whoever their people are that are in the circle or in that particular behavioral mode can escape. They can pull them out and replace them with you. And it's real easy to do today with technology. It's happening all over the place. So this is why we got to clean ourselves up. It don't pay today to be that way. So in the spirit of the Million Man March, in the spirit of Holy Day of Atonement, let's atone, let's settle our differences, and let's just clean up our act. It's not worth it. There's so many ways in which we can be successful. Just clean it up. So in the interest of thinking about settling our differences, I want to go over the chapter in my new book entitled Mathematical Thinking. If you have the book, you can follow along. It begins with the quote, "Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam." Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam. The example that I was going to give that just came back to me again, I think I am supposed to give it. I don't know if you all noticed what's been happening off the coast of Venezuela lately, where the U.S. government actually bombed several boats, saying that they were drug boats. The old school way of dealing with that used to be that they would send the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard would go and apprehend the people on the boat, check their identities, make sure everything was okay. Or if it wasn't, then they would arrest people, confiscate the boat, and whatever was on there that they were looking for. And now today they just blowing up the boat. No Coast Guard, no nothing. That's metaphorically what's happening today when they see people in our community doing something. It's a rapid and heavy movement towards punishment. And it's not, a lot of people, oh yeah, it's because they have to replace, no more periods of grace, Regional Sky Girl. But what mechanically oftentimes what's happening is there are people that they know in certain circles that are doing these things too. And they're like, we got somebody, we can just swap it out. And then, you all of a sudden people go to court and they're like, well, wait a minute, I don't even know that person and I didn't do this. And especially with white collar crimes, probably not so much stuff where you have to be caught red-handed, but white collar crimes, the stage is changing. The reason why we get caught up like this is because we're basic thinkers. We need to learn to be more mathematical. Reason why we have differences with one another, because we're basic thinkers. All right, let's get into mathematical thinking from the art and science of business. Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam. That's from the Supreme Wisdom Lessons by Master Fard Muhammad to his servant, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. First part of the book reads like this. In the supreme wisdom of the Nation of Islam, we are taught that Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam. This is not a metaphor, okay? It is a declaration that the very order of creation, the laws that govern time, space, growth, and exchange are mathematical. Islam, meaning peace and submission to the will of Allah, is in perfect alignment with mathematics because both are exact, precise, and uncompromising in their truth. I was watching a program this morning that was talking about a lot of the major mathematical theories that came from ancient Africa, or before it was even Africa, ancient Asia, and the different books of mathematics that we know existed that didn't get passed down when they came up out of the Caucasus Mountains. That's a whole nother story. If business is the activity of life itself, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches, then mathematics is the language that measures, directs, and sustains that life. From the orbit of planets to the flow of blood through our body, from the symmetry of a leaf to the quarterly balance sheet of a corporation, all activity is governed by number, proportion, and pattern. Okay? In truth, no business decision is separate from mathematics, whether we recognize it or not. All right? Let me know in the chat if you all got the book. Then we go on to say mathematics as the hidden engine of enterprises. I know a lot of people don't like math, but math is everywhere. That's what I meant when I said from the flow of blood in our body, our blood flows at a rate. It's a certain thickness. It's all mathematical. The symmetry of a leaf, that's mathematical. Your quarterly balance sheet in your corporation, that's mathematical. It's all numbers, proportion, flow, speed. It's all mathematics. Okay? So when pop culture reduces us to being simpletons, we are being pinched off from the activity of life itself. And then they can sit back and watch us and laugh and say, look at this dumb N-word. We can already pretty much predict what he or she is going to do. When a bee calculates the distance to a flower patch, the angle of the sun, and the energy needed to return to the hive, it is engaging in geometry, algebra, and optimization without a written formula. When an ant colony determines how many foragers to send out based on current food stores, they are practicing resource allocation and risk analysis. When a tree directs more nutrients to a struggling neighbor through its root network, it is balancing supply and demand. See, business is all up in nature. It's the activity of life itself. When we open up to these understandings and these concepts, we'll be better business people. We'll be better able to engage in trade and commerce. These same disciplines drive successful human enterprise. To manage cash flow is to understand the mathematics of time and rate. To set prices is to know proportions and margins. To project growth is to apply the mathematics of patterns and probability. Even hiring, training, and scaling a team is an exercise in ratios, resource optimization, and measurable return on investment. Yet, in modern education, especially in communities systematically stripped of resources, the cultivation of true mathematical thinking is under attack. Our schools may teach formulas for a test, but they rarely train the mind in the deeper functions of mathematics. How to think critically, how to deduce truth from fact, how to identify patterns, how to predict outcomes from data. This is not by accident. A population of fluent in mathematical reasoning is far harder to exploit. I'm going to read that last statement again. A population fluent in mathematical reasoning is far harder to exploit. I remember being on a flight when that statement came to me. A population fluent in mathematical reasoning is far harder to exploit. See, when you know how to think, you know how to problem solve, it's much more difficult to exploit you. You can listen to something and use deductive reasoning to determine and figure out what happened. If you understand how to think, you can almost make a prediction. It's very difficult for people to trick and fool you. All right, let's go into forms of mathematical thinking. Every entrepreneur must master. All right. Thank you, Regional Sky Girl. She said, I will purchase it after today's broadcast. I was hoping to wait until your next book signing. However, I don't think I should wait any longer. I don't think so either, sis. FYI, you left early Sunday morning from Houston. I did. Brother Student Minister Halim had a gift for you from me. It was a copy of my disaster preparedness book. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, I'll be back in Houston in December, I think. So inshallah, I'll see you then. But I'll make an announcement on here when the other, yes, I'll give you my mailing address. I will let you guys know when I'm going to be in different places. Okay. And we got some other things coming up. Okay. Forms of mathematical thinking every entrepreneur must master. Let's talk about deductive reasoning in business. Okay. I call it from principle to precision. The term deductive, which is from the root word to deduce. It comes from the Latin word deducere, meaning to lead down from. So in logic, deductive describes a process that begins with a general rule or an established fact and applies it to specific situations. So in deductive reasoning, you want to think of like an upside down triangle. You start with the bigger principle, and then you narrow it down and apply it to a specific situation. Then there's reasoning, which is the act of thinking in a structured, logical way to form conclusions, judgments, or inferences. It is the process of connecting ideas so that an outcome follows logically from the starting information. So reasoning is the process. Okay. When you combine the two, deductive reasoning It is a disciplined way of thinking that starts with a general principle, like we just said, known to be true. So the general principle has to be known to be true, and uses it to reach a certain specific conclusion. If the starting principle is accurate and the reasoning process is valid, the conclusion will also be correct. And then there's no guesswork involved. In business, deductive reasoning is the application of established rules, formulas, and measurable truths to real world problems. It removes emotion, it removes the bias, removes speculation from decision making. Some of you all may be saying, well, I don't understand what the difference is between how we think every day. Most of us are binary thinkers. It's either A or B. Somebody calls us, says something to us. Our only go-to is, let me just panic and go off and curse or quit. Whatever those two options, it's either run or stay or whatever it is. We have two options. We panic. We're not able to think in a complex way. This is why oftentimes when we get upset with people and people don't, when we get upset with people and people don't necessarily agree with us or things don't go our way, our only other option is to either fight them, hurt them, kill them. Even if there's, here's one that happens every single day. I'm the kind of person I subscribe to and work very hard to say, I'm going to work to be as massively successful as I possibly can. And some people look at certain things about you and they draw a very simple conclusion. I was talking to somebody the other day who had who used to live in a mansion not too far from where we were meeting. And they said that when they got the offer to sell the mansion, they realized that they could get them a beautiful new condo and an amazing area. They could travel. They could also get a beachfront property in Miami. So with the sale of that one property, they were able to get two properties, both lakefront properties, one oceanfront, both waterfront properties, one oceanfront in Miami and one lakefront in Chicago. And what the sister said to me was that, but she finds herself constantly having to explain to simple-minded people about the process, because people in her family were like, yeah, she couldn't make it. She had to move out of that place, and her husband. And she said, I can't get them to think in a more complex way. And I said, because if they're already a simpleton and in their mind, they only got two choices, until you teach them how to mathematically think, you're not going to be able to convince them. So stop trying to convince them. And girl, her and her husband getting ready to leave and go to Miami. And they're going to be staying in the beachfront property in Miami over the winter. And she said they'll be back in April when it gets warm here. That's a powerful trade-off. So they got their beautiful condo here. They're just going to lock the door. And she said they'll come back. Both of them work remotely. So they headed to the beach for the summer. And I told her, I said, why would you be focused on trying to teach a simpleton, a non-mathematically thinking person about how to take advantage of real estate when they can't see that because they're a simpleton? I said, girl, go enjoy. You and your husband go and enjoy y'all place in Miami. Because when you're dealing with simple-minded people, I don't care if it's your relative or your family member, sometimes you got to leave them in their simple-minded space. That's what I mean by binary thinking. Oh, she moved. Her and her husband moved. They must be bankrupt. They must have lost their job or whatever. She said that her mother called her crying because one of the cousins had told his mother, which is her mom's sister, that they had they had lost their jobs and were filing bankruptcy and they were in trouble. And that's why they sold the house. I said, now look, let me just give you how simple thinking that is. Let's say that happened. Let's say y'all both lost your jobs. That can happen in today's America's unraveling. You both lost your job. Then you got a beautiful asset over here that you can sell, right? And do what? Get two places and have money in the bank. You wouldn't necessarily need to stay there and cry about it and worry about it because you got an asset that people of wealth use all the time to create opportunity for themselves. And then I said, well, but in that case, it didn't happen. Both of y'all are still there at the company. So these are people who are being very simpleton. And sometimes we think, oh, they just jealous. They just hating on us. They don't like us. They may just be dumb. They may just be real simpletons and they can't think. I remember when we were building the hospitals and the clinics and stuff like that in Maryland, I had people in my family saying, oh, she's that doctor's secretary. She's that doctor's manager. It's not that they have anything valid. I've never been a secretary, and it's been so long since I've been like a basic manager. I'm literally there as a developer, having come out of a very big contract with the government, becoming a developer, known in the area as a developer, but then my family saying I'm a secretary or a manager. Well, I can't trip on that. I gotta atone with the fact that they're just dumb. They don't know. Why are they done? I don't mean that in an insulting way, because it's not like they can't grow bigger, but it's just that they're simpletons. They're binary thinkers. So she can't possibly be doing that. She has to be somebody's manager or secretary. And then when binary thinkers are around you and they're influencing your life, they can be very insulting. It can be very painful, especially if they have an emotional relationship with you. You got to know how to recognize when it's just somebody who just is not that smart. Just not that smart. But what we do is we personalize it. Oh, they don't got faith. They don't like me. You're just a binary thinker. Because I remember thinking to myself, if you just use basic deductive reasoning, but clearly maybe they didn't understand what I've been doing all those years. When I'm traveling around, being a business consultant, being a business developer, maybe they didn't understand that. They didn't ask questions because they're a binary thinker. It's just, you got a job, this is what you do, and then all of a sudden you're a developer. Wait, huh? They couldn't get it. They didn't understand it. When in fact, I didn't go from a job to being a developer. I was a contractor with my own contracts and things like that, but I didn't even bother to explain. And to flip that around on the other side, the reason why a lot of us become jealous, competitive, you got people, you got fathers competing against son, you got mothers competing against daughters, co-workers competing. The reason why a lot of times we do that is because we are simple-minded people. And we're not able to look at things in a complex way. So it reduces us to basic animalistic reptilian behavior. I don't like that person. Let me eat them up. Let me tear them down. Or if they looked at me a certain way, or their success makes me remember what I should have been doing. Or maybe back in the day, I didn't do what I was supposed to be doing. So now they make me look bad. It's reptilian, animalistic thinking that oftentimes creates a problem, because now you're reacting to your basic animalistic thinking. Now your decisions and your interaction with that person is based on this reptilian, animalistic, basic binary thinking. And now you're creating a relationship based on your reptilian binary thinking that may be harmful, may be difficult, and is preventing you from elevating. See, a person like me that thinks in a complex way, I'm always trying to bring other people along, because I don't think in a negative way. I don't think of it in like, oh, you only got this amount of education, you can't possibly. I be around all these people, and I know that it's not the education. So I'm like, if you learn how to think and learn how to conduct yourself and learn how to handle yourself, you can make it in any environment. I think it was Barack Obama who said, when you get close, you realize, like, they're not all that. But if you're a simpleton, a binary thinker, like I put in the book, then you can't see that, because you're so stuck on the fact that maybe you made a mistake years ago. So I made a mistake, so it's this or that, this or that. That's binary thinking. I only got through one type of thinking. I may have time to get through critical thinking. Let me see. Let me find another one that you all may enjoy. Let me just, there's so much in here about mathematical thinking. We talked about deductive reasoning. There's critical thinking. Let me just go over the critical thinking aspect. I'll skip up to that. Critical thinking is the disciplined ability to evaluate information objectively, weigh evidence, and make decisions that align with both factual data and core values. Listen, people, listen, entrepreneurs, listen up. It's not your education. It's not you can hire somebody with a degree. It's how you think. Are you a simpleton? Are you an animalistic, reptilian type of basic thinker? Or do you know how to think in a complex manner? What does that mean? Things become multifactorial at certain levels. What does that mean? It's not just this or that. There may be 7 options to solve a problem. People who can think, regardless of their background, regardless of where they come from, regardless of their educational ability, those are the ones who are successful in business. So in the spirit of the Holy Day of Atonement, we're going to clean ourselves up. If we got a drug problem, let's get it together. If we got a sex problem, let's get it together. If we're a liar, let's get it together. If we're a competitive, jealous person and we hurting people because of that, let's get it together. And let's figure out what we have to do to put ourselves on the right side of the grace that is narrowing now in society. See, what's interesting is you don't got to be religious to understand this. See, people like to say, oh, that's because y'all religious. That's because y'all, y'all spiritual. Just look around you. Ain't about that no more. Don't get yourself caught up where you are on the wrong side of grace, because these people that you're looking at, that you're trying to be like, they're not going to give you no grace. They're going to see you as an opportunity to pin whatever their homeboy is doing on you, and then you going down. That's just real. That's just real talk. See it every day, especially in the white collar space. That is, again, if you read my book, this book is a spiritual download of so many principles that I've seen over the years in businesses. I've actually helped to build and support almost $1 billion worth of businesses throughout my entire career. and I've seen a lot. I'm not somebody who just went and sat in an office and went to the same office every day. So I had a limited number of experiences. I was very blessed and fortunate to work as a consultant, to be able to move around, and I believe to be able to do what I do today, which is help and support, which is why I believe the book is getting such great attention and reviews, because it is from real life principles that I see hold us back as a people from participating in the activity of life itself. Okay. So critical thinking is the disciplined ability to evaluate information objectively, weigh evidence, and make decisions that align both factual data and core values. It is not merely the act of gathering information, but the process of questioning it, testing its accuracy, and examining it from multiple perspectives before reaching a conclusion. In business, a critical thinker does not accept a supplier's promise, a social media claim, or a marketing report without verification. Instead, they examine the source of the information, measure it against other data, and consider the possible motivations behind it. They are able to distinguish between fact and opinion, identify unstated assumptions, and hold back final judgment until they have weighed the evidence thoroughly. Me and my team call this code cracking. And sometimes you can't code crack with everybody, okay? Because they're in a loop of simple thinking. So the code cracking, they can't stomach it. But me and my team, we call it code cracking. So something happened and we'll sit down and be like, let's crack the code. Sometimes we crack it in an hour. Sometimes we crack it in 15 minutes. Sometimes we crack it in 4 or 5 hours. And so we're laying out the facts and seeing where the facts take us and using deductive reasoning and critical thinking to do what we call crack the code. It's a mathematical process that we go through. I used to do it with my business partner in Maryland. We would code crack, but everybody can't code crack with you. Okay. So when you read this in the book and I start talking about how to develop a team of code crackers, you got to look at their emotional intelligence level before you put them on the code cracking team. Because when you're code cracking, there's going to be data that's going to come up that might not be pleasant. It might be things about people that are not flattering, but that's not what you're there for, to judge what you're seeing. You're there to crack the code so that you know strategically how to move. I hope y'all getting this. To think critically in business is to separate reality from noise. The noise is the emotion. Again, if you have somebody that you want to put on the team because you say, man, I really like the way they think, you got to understand, are they able, you have to discern if they are able to separate reality from the noise. Can they remove emotion from the data that they are receiving? Because oftentimes when you're trying to crack the code, you're evaluating behaviors and things that happened and incidents because you want to extract the mathematical thinking pattern that's going to get you to the point where when you finish with that investigation, you know exactly what direction to go in and you can see who's who. But I suggest, and if you book me for a coaching session, I'm taking a few. We can talk about how you can set up a code cracking team. We also, me and my team, we will help you code crack. So if you have an issue, that's what we do from a crisis management standpoint. Crisis management is really just code cracking. That's really what we're doing. To think critically in business is to separate reality from noise. It is to resist the temptation of acting on emotion or peer pressure, and instead make decisions grounded in verifiable truth. A business owner applying critical thinking may, for example, analyze a vendor's lowest price claim by requesting a detailed cost breakdown, comparing it with market competition, and factoring in the long-term reliability of the supplier, not just the immediate savings. I'm going to stop right there for today. But when we are using mathematical thinking and we're engaging in what I call code cracking, we're not reacting to all these emotional pieces. Sometimes you may have a person in an equation that engages in certain behavior, and you and your team have to figure out why. You go, okay, I got to unravel this so I can figure out what happened, so I can figure out how best do I move. Or you may say, based on the code cracking or the mathematical analysis that I've just done, I got to blow up the spot. I got to drag everybody into the sun. You may say, I can negotiate. I can manipulate my way up out of this and never talk to that person again. Or you could say, you know what? Now that I see what they're doing, let me go back and document my transactions and what I did with them, because I'm pretty certain that this or that is going to happen to them, and I want to make sure I'm separated. It tells you how to move. Sometimes you code crack and you're like, you know what, this ain't nothing. So you're not going into it with an expected outcome, okay? But remember, one of the best and funnest for me, one of the most fun things about business and being a business developer is the code cracking part of it. I love problem solving. But again, everybody can do it. All right. Okay. So we talked about the book. You guys are going to go out there, get your book. It's available on Amazon, or you can go right here to the Art and Science of Business. Then you get to see some of the reviews. You can join the mailing list. There's a link that'll click and take you where you can buy it. You can buy the old book, whatever you decide to do, you can do it out there. I got a call yesterday we got an interview coming up because we are nominated for an award for the book, which I am really excited about. So get your copy. So when we come to a city near you, you can be able to participate in the discussion. If you come to Chicago, I think the next one's in Chicago, you'll be able to participate. Don't forget, we got Holy Day of Atonement coming up this weekend, Sunday. If you can make it to the mosque, cool. If not, tune in to NOI.org. We're going to be talking about the 30-year anniversary of the Million Man March and the Holy Day of Atonement. Very, very historical time and day. And if you were blessed to be there, you are a truly blessed person. November 1st and 2nd is when we're going to have our play. I tried to play the video this morning. It didn't work for some reason, but don't forget, go to my social media pages. We are doing a theatrical interpretation of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's footsteps to meeting with the Savior, Master Fard Muhammad. And we're going to be doing it right in the former home of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We have some amazing things that we are working on and calls that we have gotten for the house. I can't let the cat out the bag yet, but all I'm saying is save up your money, get your tickets together so you can get here, because you're not going to want to miss what we got coming up at the Elijah Muhammad house. The amount of accolades and attention, there's a new article coming out. It's not coming out until the end of November, about the work that we're doing at the house. I can't tell y'all because people like to sabotage, but suffice it to say, go to ElijahMuhammadHouse.com. But we popping. Allah is blessing us. We're getting there. All projects and all business has an ebb and flow. Again, if you're a simpleton and you're a binary thinker, you don't see that. So sometimes as business people, we go up and then things go down. And when things go down, the people who are simpletons and binary thinkers around you will think, oh yeah, this is a trip. They done fell off. This ain't working. They don't realize that things have an ebb and a flow. And what happens in the vicissitudes of business is that the ebb gives you an opportunity to prepare yourself for the flow. Okay. It's the same way in healthcare. We would go through the summer, would be kind of slow. That's when we finished getting our documentation together. We could update our system. We do any repairs on the facilities that we needed to do in the summer, because for whatever reason, come the holiday season, everybody gets sick. So starting in November, we know from November to March, we're getting ready to be super busy, where, got to carry around the bat phone and listen and be responsive to patients. But we know we're going to be super busy during that time frame. It's an intense period of busyness. But if somebody were to come to one of our facilities in the summer and they was a simpleton and a binary thinker, they'd be like, oh, they ain't got no business. Ain't nobody even up in here. That's because most people don't go to the business. And they don't go to the doctor in the summertime. But also what oftentimes will happen is when people are out and about trying to move around throughout the summer, they start realizing that, man, maybe I don't feel that good. And so once the children get back to school, they start going to the doctor. All right. So that's ebb and flow. Same thing in restaurants. You go to a restaurant, you go, oh, I'm sitting down, ain't nobody in here. They ain't doing good. They ain't got no business, but it just might be part of their ebb. So as personal business people, there's an ebb and flow as well. And if you're in business and you've never experienced that, you're probably not really in business. But if you are experiencing that, understand what it is. Okay, we're going to get out of here. Let me see who we got in the chat really quickly before we go. All right, I see Brother Lamont. He says, Walaikum salam, happy Friday and good morning. Mom says, happy Friday, everyone. Regional Sky Girl says, Assalamu alaikum. I pray that everyone is well. Thank you, sis. Thank you for that prayer. We appreciate that. James Camouflage says ASA James E. Muhammad Water Systems LLC. Okay, I think he's just telling us who he is. Tiago Neely, thank you. Good morning. How's everyone today? We are well by the grace of Allah. B. Marie BB says, good morning, everyone. New follower and listener. Thank you so much. I see a lot of people that are here that didn't want to be in the chat today, and that is okay too. All right, so happy Holy Day of Atonement. You all stay close to social media. We'll be making announcements about all the things that we have going on. Get the book, study, read, and continue the conversation within your business, within your community, within your family about learning to mathematically think. All right, so remember, it's not personal. It is what? Vibrational. All right. And we'll see you all, inshallah, tomorrow morning. I think tomorrow morning we're going to go over the 8 steps of atonement. We usually do that every year right before the Holy Day of Atonement. So I think tomorrow that's what we'll work on. Okay. So be a friend, tell a friend, and we'll see you all right here tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Central Time. Take care.